we're gonna start this now because if we don't, I'm gonna be so spun off of coffee that this might be just a little bit too interesting. First off, I'm David, Wrench Road in Open Oceanside, and we're super fortunate to have Kelly here. Kelly is the guy that provided us with all of that, and then the sheep's head that you're going to be playing with. There we go. So just a quick overview. Introductions, we got that. Quick background. Kelly, would you like to?
Yeah, so my name is Kelly Fukushima. I'm a commercial fisherman here in San Diego. My job is to go out and access fresh local seafood and get them in the hands of people that are going to be able to use them for A, education, and B, for feeding people. I'm what we call a portfolio fisherman here in San Diego, which means that I participate in a bunch of different fisheries. Most of the guys that are fishermen nowadays do that. Rotate fisheries depending on the season and the availability of fish. One of the greatest things that I would like to stress to chefs is that commercial fishermen are always thought of as guys that just go catch fish. And what our basic job is we're the ones that get your seafood. The fish are out in the ocean. They don't belong to us. They belong to all the people that feed them. So it's our job to make that connection and be the bridge between them. And I'm really happy to be here today. And we have some, really nice local seafood. And I think Chef Javin's going to show some tricks and treats on how to utilize the whole fish. And we can talk a little bit about the sustainability of the seafood industry here in San Diego. What makes what we do here and what we have so special compared to other places, and also just go back in the background about some of the fisheries if anybody has any questions, and talk about our basic seafood industry and how important it is to
Cool, thank you. So, an underlying theme throughout all of this is chef's relationship with nature. This is not something that you go to the grocery stores in the frozen food section in a bag, in a box, in another bag that you then scan and put in another bag. This is a human being. This is my friend here. He's out there on the water getting this for us. And through his life doing this, he knows where to find stuff when other people can't. He knows what to eat at what time. He knows, he's got a good idea of what you can get where. I mean, fishermen have a lot of tricks. I've learned as much from fishermen as I have from chefs as far as some of their recipes, you've got a ton of mackerel sitting around, which we're also going to focus on because that's a fish that we both believe is one of the best in the sea and it doesn't get the love it deserves. But, relationships, and the same goes for farmers. I'm going to touch on sustainable and ethical sourcing practices. Basically, getting stuff. And it's easy as you go into your careers. You're gonna work long hours. You're gonna be missing sleep. Everything about the industry and the need to survive in this day and age and bring a profit for your household and for whoever employs you. There's pressure to go down, we call it the dark side. But this is why this is so important. And at the end of the day, it just delivers. It's a better product for whoever your future clients are. It's something that you can go home after a long, hard day and actually feel good about what you did rather than just hitting a clock and passing the time. Anytime you put extra love into something, you can taste that. You did that, you feel good about doing that. Species diversification and how that ties into one of our takes on sustainability. Total utilization is another good one, and then there'll be time for Q&A. Try to figure out where. Oh, there we go. So there's my bio real quick, but not really here to talk about me as much as the fish. Kelly's bio is more interesting.
not really.
So.
Yeah, fisherman in San Diego, like I said. I'm fortunate enough to have a beautiful wife that I've been together with since we were 16 years old. We have 3 boys, all teenagers. 2 out of the 3 are aspiring commercial fishermen. They've grown up in a household watching how, basically being involved in what their parents love to do. And I think that, they want to go down that road and have a job that satisfies them and makes them happy. And I'm in support of it. I think that commercial fishing is a extremely, extremely important job. And not only the service and the products that we provide, but also just the education and health benefits associated with it. So I'm promoting my children to become fishermen. And we work a lot with the Tuna Harbor Dockside Market. A lot of direct marketing every Saturday. You can get down there, meet the fishermen that produce your seafood, ask questions about it, become educated.
That's the one down by the aircraft carrier?
Yeah, by Seaport Village. It's every Saturday. It's online. Only open our fish market in San Diego where you can go down and basically shake hands and get the information from any kind of fish, any kind of seafood that's available from the fishermen. And it's just a cool place to hang out over here and check out the local seafood scene. Also, we do a lot of direct marketing around town, and I think that in recent times it's been incredibly important to have chefs like David who are really grasping the concept of using the seafood that's available, that's healthy, and that's underutilized in our fisheries. Because for so long I feel like high priority seafood like things like swordfish and sharks and tuna have been the only things that have been available on the menu when you go to most restaurants. But we're finding out that there's a lot of miscellaneous fish that when taken and treated with care, just like the other fish, they're just as delicious to eat. They're really responsibly sourced, because when you eat fish that's diversified in your diet, then you're taking less pressure off the big fish that are mostly targeted, so you're spreading out that effort through the ecosystem. And then the other thing is value. Smaller, more unloved fish are a lot cheaper, so it works well for the fishermen because we develop a market where we can, instead of discarding the fish, sell them. And then also works really well for chefs and restaurant owners that want to use a product that they can make into something really great that has, that controls food costs that they get for a lot cheaper. So it's really well.
And oftentimes, those are the things that have more flavor.
Yeah.
There's not always a direct correlation with what people feel most comfortable with and what tastes the best.
Small fish make a tasty dish. That's a fact.
Yeah. In the ocean, it's popularity contest is definitely not always where it's at. All right, chef's relationship. I'm not really good with technology again. Chef's relationship with nature. Why is it important for us to stay connected with nature? We got to know where our product comes from. These days, your clients are going to ask it of you more and more. I do think that there's a bit of things are kind of, like when I started cooking, you could go into some of the best country clubs and they all had a room somewhere in the building, and maybe hidden from sight. You had a room and it would be filled with 10 cans, Cisco 10 cans, and that was like, it was always there. Especially in San Diego, we have more local farms than anywhere else on the planet. We have this is the dead of winter. This isn't sport fishing season. This is, you notice that it's been rainy, it's been windy, every condition that, you would not think of as a good day to go fishing, or fish that, the popular fish that they go after, they're not out there in great abundance. Yet, we're still able to get this. This is why we're so lucky to live here. And if we're gonna cook here and not embrace that, we're literally tying an arm behind our backs. We're really kind of screwing ourselves over if we don't do that. To be a cook, a chef in the food business, you probably got a certain level of creativity, there's more to menu planning than just taking your favorite items and putting it on that piece of paper, or the things that you're most proud of. If I wanted to, if I didn't give myself parameters when I'm writing my menus, it would look like this ADHD mess, brain cluster, So to give ourselves parameters, it helps, when you're sitting around. Because a lot of times our thing is not like not what we, not finding ideas to put on there. It's tapering those ideas down. Just like sometimes in cooking, it's not what you put into a dish, it's what you leave out. That simplicity, and that carries all the way up and down to what we do. So if you give yourself those parameters with, paying attention to what Mother Nature gives you, it's going to help you that much more. And if you got to pick criteria for narrowing things down, you might as well pick, one of the best that you possibly can, as far as what's good for the planet, what's good for the customers, and everything down the list. Definitely going to offer the best experience for the guest. There's a reason that, so you have some fruit, certain seasons, some things, you don't. And the only thing that's really led our society away from that is this illusion of abundance that factory food has produced. And, people want the salmon, or, although this year it's been kind of weird because weather hasn't been, following trend, so we picked the normal trend. So yeah, we do have tomatoes and strawberries that are growing. I got tomatoes growing from a plant that died behind the restaurant. So it doesn't always fit, but typically you're not supposed to have strawberries in the winter time, and that's okay because there's plenty of other things that you do have in the winter time. And on top of that, we live in San Diego, so those options are far greater than if we live north of here. The other thing is real food comes from nature. Take pride on getting your hands in the dirt, doing something with what's here. I mean, more and more as your careers progress, you're going to see this because it's kind of where we have to go as a species to survive. It's like that George Carlin stand-up routine. He's like, don't worry about the planet. The planet's going to be fine. Whether humans exist or not, it'll still be there. But as a human myself, I kind of want to continue to exist, and I'm sure you all do. So collectively, people start moving in this direction. And then there's also the health aspects. What it takes to keep something having the appearance of being fresh after being shipped halfway across the world, or almost all the way across the world. There's plenty of info. So this is a good one for
Go back
one. I'll try to be a little quicker so we get on the fish. But what I do to make sure that I'm sort of sourcing as sustainably and ethically as possible, top of the list is always local fishermen. There's kind of an order of who you go to. Always, and sometimes there's pressure on you to plan your menus, and you just kind of got to wait because we do have to live in reality. The thing that gets me is all these farm to table events that want the menu 2 months before, and you don't know. You'll just have a little laugh and remember me when it comes up in your food. So I think the best way to get around that is to as long as you deliver what you promise, you're fine. So kind of if you can, if you do have that flexibility, leave things nice and vague. That will allow you to make change-ups. I can't tell you how many times I've submitted a menu for an event or whatever, and it's local fish crudo with seasonal veggies, and just to give them something so that there's a lot of times, even today, what we knew yesterday for sure what we have to offer this. So the recipe you'll see in a bit is having the database, everything you've learned here, having that to pull from so that you can remain flexible is super important too. Performing, if you can't get local fishermen, next would be somebody like Tommy Gomes and Catalina Offshore Products. Pacific Shellfish is good. Have a vendor that's trusted. Now we have fishmongers. Patty Glennon is huge in LA, comes down here. Somebody that stands behind their product, more than just a salesman. They're working. A lot of them believe in what they're doing instead of just getting that extra commission from the sale. Form relationships with those fishermen, those fishmongers. Same with farmers. If you get the chance to go to the dockside market, do that because those can be relationships that last your whole career. I deal with people at this restaurant that I've been dealing with years ago. It's because we have an established trust. I know these guys aren't going to screw me over. I know how hard Kelly works. And that's good because when you're explaining that to a customer, you have that pride in what you're doing. And if you've got that pride in what you're doing, you're going to treat it better. Buying fish whole is a good one. Seafood fraud it's out there. I'm not going to lie. It's everywhere. It's a lot harder to fake this than it is to fake a fillet by the side. And as you go on, you'll be able to spot it in fillets too. But it took me a while, and I spent a lot of time looking at fish. So that whole fish, plus you get all the extra pieces that if you buy them and use them, they're getting used. If you don't, there's a good chance that it's getting wasted, and that's some of the best stuff, which is wasting as little as possible, and we'll continue to go over that. But I think, hearing it from the fishermen, what are your thoughts on how chefs are currently sourcing? What can we do to be better?
One of the things that I'm pretty passionate about, and I know a lot of fishermen are, is the traceability aspect of seafood. When a chef goes shopping for whether it be the produce or the ranch that they're purchasing the meat from, or their seafood, I see a lot of times where people put in the extra effort and they can identify the farm, they can identify the farmer when it's a carrot or it's a tomato or what it may be. And it's really similar to do with meat, but with seafood, I feel like a lot of my experiences have been where people randomly show up from, a mystery fish company with a box of fish meat, plastic bag, or a styrofoam box. They don't really put in the effort to, locate where that fish is from. The reason that the traceability aspect of seafood is so critically important to everybody is I would say priority is the health benefits, the health aspect of it. Fish is, it's perishable products. You want to make sure that you have the freshest fish. B, the sustainability factor. The United States has the most well-managed fisheries anywhere in the world. The state of California even takes that to another level. The regulations here for commercial fishing and sport fishing in general basically ensure the fact that there's going to be a consistent supply of a healthy resource of seafood. So if you're buying fish directly from local fishermen, then that's the best you can do anywhere. Foreign fisheries, not so clean. Nobody really has any idea what goes on a lot of the fishing boats around the world and how the fish gets here. And if you're going to be a true steward of the ocean, and you're going to really be concerned about where your seafood comes from, the sustainability aspect of the seafood, then you need to be well versed in where your fish come from. Bargain shopping occasionally, maybe somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, I have a sheep's head today, and I don't know where it came from, and it's $3 a pound, but the guy that's a local fisherman caught it, and he needs to get $4 a pound, but you can verify that the fish was caught yesterday, the fish was caught on this boat, you can even get pictures of the fish, or tell you exactly where it's caught. Another big thing about the traceability is that we really want to focus on using fish that's in season, and that's really easy to do when you know you're fishing. You could be eating fish that's targeted outside of the season somewhere else, or illegally caught, or harvested during a spawning period when it's doing critical damage to the resource. With U.S. fishermen, especially if you're buying fish from the regional area, you really know that. And that's one of the things that I think is really important for chefs to do. Also, just the economics of buying local fish. The seafood that is right here, right now, I went out yesterday and caught 2 miles off the tip of Oklahoma. That fish came on my boat, came in the back of my truck, came right here for a few minutes to experience today. When the travel time, the handle time, and how many times the fish have been transported and repackaged and rehandled and re-iced and heated up, we deal with direct with fishermen, or direct with reputable wholesalers. You get really a lot. There's a lot of mystery taken out of fishing. So I think those are two critical aspects to take into consideration.
And yeah, I think one thing just to always remember is that good food shouldn't be cheap. Whether it's fish. If it's cheap, there's a reason why, and I don't think I've ever seen a good reason why it's cheap. Species diversification. I definitely think it's important to utilize a variety of seafood. Variety is the spice of life. Talking to Patty up at Superior Seafood, big Southern California seafood place. He's also he's definitely one of the fishmongers that I trust, and he's a bit of an activist for sustainable, a lot of an activist for sustainable fish. And still the company he works for, which is something that he's fighting every day to change, half of what they sell is farm-raised salmon. And even though there's second generation fish farms that are doing things a little better, what do we all know about farm-raised salmon? Yep, money. So, you kind of want to be, of course, it's easy to put something on the menu that people want, but as chefs, it's our job to educate people. Like if they want this over here and there's something better over here, just like Kelly would tell me, like, hey David, I know you want this, but I got this, I think it's better. I'm gonna trust them. Once you earn their trust with your food, they're gonna trust you, and then you've just turned them on to something new, and you've just expanded their horizons. And salmon and tuna, they're the usual suspects. Nothing against those fish; they're amazing fish. But we need to lay off them a little bit, let them rebound. It's amazing what the ocean will do if you just leave it alone for a little while. Mankind is, we consume. And when you spread that out, it reduces that burden. Okay, so maybe you want to eat 4 bites of tuna. Well, you cut that back to 1 bite of tuna, and all of a sudden you get to try this guy, you get to try that guy, you get to try that guy. I promise you that, if anybody even has a decent palate, they're going to like this stuff better because there's more flavor. It definitely ensures a fresher catch. If you got your heart set on tuna and, they're not catching tuna out of San Diego, because we got this. Like, I was so, this is so fresh, I was worried about the rigor mortis and cutting it in front of all of you. Or a better example is salmon. Where we find local salmon, So.
Well, one thing too is, as a chef, I think that having a variety of different seafood is really going to challenge you because you're going to think outside the box. If somebody knocks on your door with a box of 10 different kinds of fish, you're going to have to really go, oh, yeah, I'm educated, I'm confident enough about how to make this taste good and how to work with it rather than just buying a small piece of fish from the ocean. And I think that knowing we're going back to the traceability aspect of the seafood and then having a story really to tell behind it with your chef does create a lot of value in the product that you produce and the result. I know that, at a regular restaurant, if somebody asked the server, hey, where did my tuna come from? And the guy goes, I don't know, Josh Mills Fish Market. But if you were to go to a place like where David works and he's preparing your meal for you and you say, hey, David, where'd that tuna come from? He's like, oh man, my buddy on the Three Boys or the Plan B or whichever fishing boat it may be just caught this thing, this yesterday in the evening, brought it in, iced it, got it to the shop this morning, break it down for dinner. Yeah, you got to check this guy out. He takes really good quality, really good care of his fish. It's premium quality, and I think that adds a tremendous amount of value to the experience and your meal when you share it like that. I think that's a pretty cool point.
So using every little bit, this is going to be covered in the, we're going to do this in real life in a little bit. I think like with the slide before, the whole excitement of doing different things and diversifying species you use. You got into this for a lot of reasons, I'm sure. People, I think one of those reasons is probably a certain curiosity. I think a lot of chefs are curious people. We want to explore things. We want to play with flavors. We want to see, and nothing is better to help fuel that curiosity than getting your hands on something. Like, if you haven't seen it before, that's the thing that, okay, how do we make it taste good? What is this? And that kind of carries over to the, there's all different fish that you can use that on, but taking one fish and looking at every little piece of it. The challenge definitely incites creativity and innovation. A lot of good things in cooking came from peasant food. A lot of peasant food wasn't the prime cuts of the meat. And a lot of that stuff might take a little more time and a little more love, but if you invest that into it, those are definitely going to be the pieces that give you more flavor. And they're cooler. It's a selling point. People will seek you out if you're doing cool stuff that a lot of other places don't do. Financial, I mean, you definitely, you know, when you get all of this per pound, it's going to be less than something that's already been cleaned. We already hit the seafood broth part. Another reason is just that Mother Nature makes the best plastic wrap. You know, this is going to stay better longer like this than any piece of any, you know, no matter how well you wrap it or what paper towel brand you use, that was made to take care of that fish, and it's going to take care of it really well. We hit the flavor, sustainability. I just think, you know, with a lot of the hunger in the world, like mankind really isn't in a position to be wasting anything. And it's definitely, you know, that false sense of abundance that we're lucky enough to have in this country, but we really shouldn't take advantage of.
There's a tremendous amount of value too in like buying and utilizing whole fish like this. That's probably, I would say, like around a 2 pound California sheephead. And those are, you know, they're really affordable fish. They go from anywhere between $5 and $7 a pound. So if you average out $6, that's a $12 fish. I mean, that fish right there is plenty for 2 grown human beings to eat for dinner and a meal, with probably extra to spare.
Yeah, I would almost say a family of 4.
Yeah, I mean,
Appetizer
for $12.
and main course for $12 right there.
And when you you start going into the grocery store and a lot of different places, you see how expensive seafood is. I mean, almost everything that's coming off of a line is approximately $20 a pound for one steak, and where you can buy whole fish direct from fishermen or from fish markets.
And I'm a bad example because whenever I go to I haven't been to a normal grocery store in a long time, but you know, when I have walked in, you know, I'm always walking in thinking I'm feeding 300 people instead of 3, and it's just in us, you know. But I've never been able to walk out of a grocery store, you know, shopping. If it's just me feeding my kids, I'm looking at $30 to $50. So even if you took that down to being a little more frugal, you know, if you bought some veggies at the farm for another $5, feeding 4 people with 12 plus, I mean, you can't do that with the grocery store. No. That's not even making an exception for the better flavor, the better nutrition, and feeling like you've done, you know, knowing you've done something right. Little tips for utilizing the whole fish. You'll have some whole fish, and you'll get to try some stuff out. Number 1 is look to the past. A lot of this stuff, I'm standing up here, and I'd love to take credit for all of these ideas because they're great ideas, but they've been around hundreds of years before any of us were. In the past, we kind of had it right, and industrialization kind of took us off the path. We're lucky enough to where a lot of people are realizing that we kind of went astray. It's like, no, guys, the road's over here, you know, and that's something that's cool that we get to be a part of in our lifetime, because you know, in the long term, the survival of our species does depend on it. Looking to other cultures, what is and isn't taboo doesn't have any relationship to what is and isn't tasty. You know, things that we might think is weird here could be a delicacy in another country. I mean, even down to stuff that we've been trained to think is nasty. You know, so get past that. And there's other cultures that, you know, some cultures, islands. You just look around. It's amazing how much cool ideas are out there. An important one, because it is a business, unfortunately, is market to your demographic. One thing that has really helped me is tying it into some sort of comfort food instead of like a yellowtail collar, you know, wings of the sea, because they kind of are like chicken wings of the sea, and who doesn't like chicken wings? So just kind of, if you use a little bit of marketing, it'll help move it. And you'll probably get to this point where you're like, oh no, we're going through more collars than we have fish, because each fish only has 2 collars. You know, so you're calling up Tommy, and you're like, you know, Tommy, I need the collars that are in that bucket. And that's when you're really starting to do some good in the world, because you're saving that from the trash can. And collars have become more mainstream now, and that's a good thing, because that lets us move on to the next part of the fish that needs to move. Creative solutions, that's kind of tied into it, you know. Don't be scared to step outside of the box. Have some fun with it. You know, that's the type of passion that is gonna make some weird fish part the next big thing. And chefs have been doing that for a long time. San Diego, we're lucky. It's a tight community of chefs. There's not that, you know, I've worked short times in big cities and they can stab each other in the back. You don't, who wants to be like that? You don't want to spend spend your career doing that. When you have this type of stuff that is like, you know, good for mankind, share it, work with each other. You know, if you got a buddy who's, you know, somebody in this class, when you are in a restaurant on the other side of town, hey, I did this, this, and this, you know, they might have an idea of where to take it the next step and work together on this stuff, because this stuff is way bigger than any of us or any of our individual restaurants. Tying things into comfort food really helps, and then when in doubt, you know, it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of not, pair it with bacon. Can't go wrong.
Okay, right.
And talking to these guys too, because they've always got this fish. And sometimes if they don't sell everything, there's pieces that are left, and you know, they see the value in it. You know, like how cold it was going to your car this morning, you know, or the day before when Kelly was on the water. Imagine being on the water in that cold, you know, like, you know, there's humans out there, you know, struggling to pull us out of the water. So, you know, since they do that, they see the value in it. We now know Kelly, we're hopefully going to see the value in it. And they definitely have ideas that sometimes we just don't think of.
And using the whole fish is really important too. I know at our house, you would think that fishermen having access to fresh local seafood like we do, that we'd be swordfish and shrimp and spot prawns and lobsters all the time. But the fact of the matter is we have to catch fish to survive and feed our families, and it's not affordable a lot of the times for us to eat the premium fish that we catch. So a lot of our diet in our household, and a lot of our friends who are also fishermen, are eating the fish that normally we don't have a direct market for, where it's not something that, you know, we can get $5 or $6 a pound for and make money. It's something that's less profitable for us. So we find ourselves using a lot of smaller whole fish like these in our recipes. And one of the simplest ways to do it for us, and one of our family ways when you talk about looking to other cultures, looking in the past, is steaming those fish whole or deep frying them whole, which is, you know, steaming a fish other than eating it raw, I think is, you know, one of the premier ways to tell the texture and the flavor of them. So we do, as fishermen, in our you know, our little clique of guys down at the dock, we find ourselves eating a lot of stuff that normally doesn't, you know, show up on regular menus.
Just like any meat, you cook it bone in, it's probably going to taste better, you know. Fish is no different. Is there another slide there? Oh, wait, I think it's stuck. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we'll get into playing with this fish, but just so that you can visualize some of this stuff. Those are collars, wings of the sea, swordfish bone marrow. That's a good example of what Kelly was talking about with the whole fried fish. In a restaurant setting, sometimes you don't want to fill people too much on one course, so if it's two diners, kind of lightens it up to do half sashimi, and it gives them a way to try, and this is a Southern California sculpin, gives them a way to try both, makes it a little more interesting. Fish rib karage, and that's basically Japanese fried chicken is the recipe, but it just works amazing on ribs. Kind of going into the plants, which all the same ideals apply. Banana peel tacos, banana peel sushi. I mean, if you can imagine it, you can imagine how to make it taste good and make it real, you know? I think this is the part where I'm supposed to break down a fish, but I'm not sure. So, this is a really cool fish. You know, Kelly was telling me this morning. This is truly a local boy right here. What's the range of where they...
So this is a California sheep's head. A lot of parts around the world, everybody has their own version of what a sheep's head is. It's kind of a generic name. This is a true California sheep's head in there. Really regional. They range from like Point Conception and so, you know, the north end of Southern California Bight down a couple hundred miles down in Baja. So these are found in all different depths, from, you know, the intertidal zone, really shallow, out to about 350 feet all along our coast. They habitat, you know, rocky reefy structure, tailpits, and things like that. And they have really wicked teeth that they primarily feed on crustaceans. So they eat lobsters, sea urchins, crabs, shrimps, small fishes, squid, things like that, octopus. And these fish right here, we catch them with live fish traps. So basically a pot, bait them. We set about 10 or 15 pots, and then haul them up a couple times a day. We have a strict guideline for the state of California with the amount of participants that have permits, permit holders, and then a season, and then also catch quota per fisherman. So it's highly regulated, size limit, and everything like that. These are one of the premier fish that we have here, and I think it's a really unique fish to have, in this area where we can say, hey, man, anybody that comes from out of town, say, we're out of California sheep's head. You're not going to find these in Florida, you're not going to find them in Arizona, you're not going to find them in the Pacific Northwest or China or anywhere else. So this is real fish.
They're downright delicious.
When is the season for that?
The season's open year round except for March and April. So we're coming to the closure.
March and April, no.
But there's those teeth, and an underlying theme of all of this is you are what you eat, and your customers will be what you feed them. That crustacean, those teeth to eat those crustaceans, these have a mild lobster flavor because of it. So it's a really, really cool fish. All of that, and they're delicious.
Those little fish are pretty tough too. They can break bones and shell from crabs and sea urchins just by snapping.
Yeah, as they get bigger, those teeth get really like.
Well, one cool fact about these also is these fish are hermaphrodites, so they all start off as female, and then they turn into males. So like a male one is a traditional where you see them, the head's black, and then they're red and they're black again, so they're kind of striped. And according to the biologists that we've talked to, what dictates when they turn from female to male is the abundance of fish in the area. So when you get into an area where there's a lot of sheep, that you'll find a lot of small males, and then if you go to areas where there's not as many sheep, that you're not as prolific, then the males will be a lot larger.
And there's no real good way to do this up here in front of you. Got to take Mother Nature's plastic wrap off of this. So definitely something that's good to have in your knife bag. Being more this and this bone and a scaler. Having a sushi bar, if you see, kind of like the thing is like when, the new guy walks in or whatever, the other chefs are like sniffing around, like they want to see if he's got one of these in his knife case, because it means he knows how to break down the whole fish. And things have gotten to where you do have sushi chefs that don't know how to break down the fish. That's kind of, that's a scary, definitely scary that it's come to that. No, a lot of it is that like there's an art that's been lost there, So trying to do this in the bus tub so that, you know how to scale a fish and they've broken down a fish before, so make it less about that, more about the recipe. But one thing I will say is, like Murphy's Law, all of the places that are hardest to get in and get the scales off are the same places that you really need those scales to be off. Just funny how that works. And this is kind of a, for a demo, if it is your first fish to cut, if you can cut this, you're going to be safe cutting a lot of fish because these have some of the hardest bones to cut through. Here you got things like, black cod,
Come on, Kelly, tell them how to make that sheep scaler. Come on, tell them.
The best fish scaler I've ever used is just a 1x2 piece of wood with 3 or 4 bottle caps screwed into it.
Everybody can afford that.
Oh no, and now I am about to go home and make a Sapporo brand fish scale.
The big bottle or the short bottle?
All right. So there, we got the scales. Just gonna give them a quick rinse.
Need more side towels?
We'll get you. risky though. I'm just gonna pat them dry. And even at this phase, we want to be kind of gentle with this guy. So first, we're gonna cut here through to here. Just kind of reach in. Grab the gills. We're going to keep this clean. A lot of time, even the guts are good. Sometimes there'll be egg sacs in there. Some fish have really tasty livers. Even like sperm sacs. Fish sperm tastes like liver if you cook it right. And that's something that definitely weirds people out. Some people, you know, if you have a more adventurous diner, it's something that's cool. But you make a moose out of it, especially when like flaw was hard to get a hold of in California.
Was it illegal?
We had it.
Everybody had it, but
So then you're gonna kind of, there's usually an air bladder in there, membrane, so you're just gonna kind of pull that. The membranes in the air bladders are fun to make chicharrones out of. They puff up real nice. And even the hearts on certain fish, this is a little small, but like, you know, in the middle of fishing season when you're just cleaning a whole ton, you save the hearts. If they're a little bitter, you just do the buttermilk trick. A lot of times when it's coming in like this, it's not bitter. You know, it's like just an amazing flavor. Fish heart yakitori is a really fun one. We're gonna get the head. And this is one of those rare, since we only got one fish, it's one of the rare, I'm scraping for enough to make the stock. Enough bones. Usually when you just have the volume of a busy restaurant, there's more than enough. I'm gonna cut the head right before the collars. As these get a little bigger, you have cheeks to work with. A lot of fish, the meat goes all the way in. There's our head. As these get older, the top of the collarbone kind of, just on the sheep's head, I find it kind of tries to block you up right up here. That piece. And like, I'll use like, me personally, you know, we'll do a lot of fish. I'll use this part to break the skin, this to explore, and this to kind of crush the bones. And you just kind of switch back and forth. You hear that? Yeah. So that noise is what you want to feel in your fingertip. Piece I was talking about. Sheep's head just has this hard little piece right in here by the collar. So here we got our fillet collar attached. Just cut from this fin around. And the wings of the sea I was talking about is that little piece. And definitely changes as you get bigger fish. Rib cage. And this is probably like the smallest ribs I would use, but it's still a tasty little bite. You just take those ribs off. You can kind of see where, that's hard for you guys to see. I didn't realize we had that thing right there.
We were gonna surprise you.
Technology.
That's why she's here.
Yeah.
Not me.
So you just cut in between these bones to make little riblets, kind of like what you saw in the picture.
Which fish do you typically do the riblets for?
We usually do the yellowtail. And that'll give you a good size, but that gives you an idea of that part. So like we're not even in the fillet, and you got 2 usable cuts right there. We're gonna leave our skin on for this one. We'll kind of come back to this, but those will be the fillets for the dish. And we're gonna use that noise again. Paper so you're not making contact with where the skin has been and where the meat has been. Thankfully we have a big enough cutting board to dodge that. Pull it, there's another collar. There we go. We're gonna leave these parts here, which will be our center of the plate, and we're going to try to take every other little piece over here to get it into the stock pot. We're going to rinse off any blood, extra membranes, stuff like that in the sink. One thing I'm a huge fan of is just using we're going to use this fish to flavor itself kind of. Since it has that really nice shellfish taste, I was thinking about just doing a little little fillet of it in its own broth as a sauce. Sorry, I apologize for my OCD there. But, so getting the broth going, you're going to see, some of the usual suspects. And in Asian cooking, sometimes it's cool just to get a little caramelization on some of this stuff. And then keep in mind, just because of the time we have, I'm going to be cheating a little bit just to get this broth done, something resembling a broth done before it's time to get out of here. So definitely, when you're doing this, take it a little bit slower. Washing fish bones, sometimes if you have on your prep sink, you'll have like a dishwasher spray. That's my favorite thing, to get it, crank the heat up all the way and almost like steam clean those bones. It'll cut out a lot of the, or hard boil them, you know, get a clean batch. Because it is nice to get a real nice clean broth, clean and clear. So some of the not so usual suspects, we have some lemongrass from my backyard, Thai ginger. A lot of the difference in the Asian broth versus your traditional beef broth is going to be a little bit of ginger, sometimes shallots, lemongrass, and it's slightly caramelized in the bottom of the can. Had some extra mushroom stems left over from last night. We cut green onions for the sushi bar yesterday, so it doesn't really, yeah, procure lime leaves. You know, there is a little bit of a flexibility about what you can put into that stock pot as long as your primary flavors are covered. We're going to finish just cleaning these bones off. Definitely don't want any blood in there.
Do you tend to freeze your fish scraps then?
Sorry?
Do you tend to freeze your fish scraps? Do you freeze them, your scraps?
Sorry?
Do you freeze your scraps? Your scraps, like your bones and all that, or? Because I can only imagine that you guys will have so many.
Well, that's where things get real good. I mean, for one, it's a lot easier to run a busy restaurant than a slow restaurant, and we're really fortunate to be busy enough to where we're always in need of, you know, and proper menu planning. You get to this point, and it's really cool when you're actually selling more of the byproduct than the center of the plate. And you know, you're picking up more. The other thing that really helps us is our second restaurant is right next door to our first restaurant, and it's a ramen shop. So instead of like a pork tonkatsu, because we have all that fish, we have a fish tonkatsu, and that's just like a hungry beast that keeps wanting to consume. So as fast as we can cut that fish, we're throwing it in. But if I was in a setting where we weren't that fortunate, I definitely freeze it before throwing it away. Splash of that. A little salt and pepper. Garlic. And the only thing with a lot of Asian broths and sauces, a lot of things you use in Asian cooking to flavor things doesn't hold up. Like sake, kind of. You ever been to a sushi bar where the sake machine's been left on too long and it has that nasty burn taste? Okay, sake kind of burns. Soy sauce, anything soy for the most part, even miso, breaks down when it hits the boiling point, and from that point on, it's just on this rapid decline. So, where you you all know, the classic French broth and stuff. With the Asian stuff, the only difference is, you'll add, with soy sauce, sake, you kind of add it later in the process so that you're not breaking it down and burning it. Sweet cooking sake definitely seems to hold up better, but if you're doing any cooking with regular sake for any reason, it just has this way of taking your dish sideways.
Why did you wash all the blood off and add flavor?
It kind of goes bitter. Makes.
If you weren't on a time constraint, how long would you cook that for? Or simmer it for lack of a better term? An hour? 2?
2 or 3.
2 to 3.
Start to finish. Yeah. There is our fish tonkatsu sauce kind of breaks a few rules, but we have those bones so clean in the beginning. Like I was trying to figure out how to make something that's not typically or traditionally made, and I kept trying to do it the right way, and it came out too clear. So to make that one cloudy, we blasted it, but it's still ripping down for a good few hours to get it to mimic pork, basically. And I really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if it was right or wrong. We just kind of tried to make it taste good.
There's no wrong in the kitchen.
But like for this, yeah, definitely a good couple hours. And then slow too. Just a really nice, you can always build a raft and make it a consomme, but if you just make it right from the beginning, you can skip, it still won't be a true consomme, but it will look almost as good if you just take that time with it, and then some of the burnt stuff, it'll be a slightly darker color and stuff. So we got a little bit of time on this. How much time do we have total? 12. We're gonna go full 2 hours. Start at 11:30. Go.
Man, what time is dinner? You can have this kitchen as long as you want. But don't forget, you have that 5:05, that 5805 merging thing up there to get back to where you belong.
That's true. That thing's horrible.
Wipe around traffic.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm good. If you guys want me to speed up, slow down, if anybody's getting bored, just say David, hurry the hell up. I'm good with that. We do have I can get that pretty close to being, what you'd want to taste if I play with some mackerel. And we're both really passionate about mackerel.
Was the mackerel we ate earlier?
Sorry?
Was it the mackerel we ate earlier?
Oh yeah. We'll do that.
I think they love some of that.
And because why are we here, right? We like to eat, so let's just have a few snacks, and I'll let you taste a few. If you haven't had it before, I think you'll be pretty stoked on it. I have those, but I saved a stunt mackerel. And then on the normal saba, I was able to get a batch started, so I can bust that out. You can taste that too. This is another good point I kind of missed in the beginning because I needed to have it clean to show you. This slime that's on fish, that's another one of nature's plastic wrapped. When you see that, it's not really, calling it a slime is like insulting it, it's just a nice, glazy, that's always a good thing to see. So we'll do 2 different types of mackerel, 3 different ways, and I'll definitely get on being as quick as I can. But we have and this is stuff that you can go in the summertime, and this is in the bait tanks. This is some of our favorite fish. This is a true mackerel, green mackerel.
Yeah, Pacific green mackerel.
So Pacific green mackerel. This is I taught my kids how to fish with this, they'll bite just about anything. You can almost always get them. And this is sushi bar Spanish mackerel or horse mackerel, aji. Being like a Japanese, dish that you eat at Japanese restaurants, a lot of people don't realize that we have some of the the very best Aji that you can find anywhere, like right out there. And it's like this, and you can see you can tell once you really look at it, there's identifying differences, but pretty similar fish, but really different and cool flavors on each of them. So these guys, I'm just going to do this kind of quick. These do have little scales that will get everywhere. Really small, like too small to identify. And just you probably see the things that are stuck to my knife handle. And the cool thing about these is they got this little ridge on the outside. It's like a
rudder.
yeah. It's like the soft scales go to hard scales. See, you kind of just can cut it off because that'll interfere when you're trying to peel the skin a few steps down the road. So I cut these off, I get the guts and the gills out. There's no point using that scaler on this little guy, but you can just over on the leading edges is where they're the hardest. Still on the spine on both sides, and then you can kind of see that coming off like this.
Are these specifically targeted or these bycatch?
So then one of the beautiful things about being an adventurous chef and using fish like this that most people consider underloved or anything is the fact that we do occasionally target them, but it's really difficult for us to make money going out and catching fish that are like a quarter of a pound each. So a lot of times they're just marketed as what would be called bycatch because it's not a targeted or directed fishery for it, so you could say they're bycatch. Which is insane because those are probably some of the highest quality seafood that we have available here, and they're also probably by far the cheapest. I mean, swordfish is 8, 10, 12, 15, 18 bucks a pound. Mackerel are like $2 a pound. So just as good to eat, especially when it's prepared properly. But
And who has mackerel at Tuna Harbor? At Tuna Harbor?
well, it just depends on. I would say traditionally the Plan B family has mackerel almost consistently every week, and then we occasionally have them if we're targeting alga or something that we get a piece stuff. They're available year round. There's no season.
Are these netted?
Oh no, actually these ones are hook and line because we were targeting the rockfish with fishing poles. And mackerel are pretty aggressive, so they'll get caught just about anyway. They're not the smartest fish around.
That's fine.
A lot of times in the sushi bar, you can leave this spine intact and fry it with the meat off, and then you put the sashimi back on the fried skeleton. And you have little collar meat and stuff, but even like this piece that I'm going to show you in just a sec, fries up. It's just like an oceanic potato chip. Just a delicious little thing to kind of munch on. My favorite part are like the tails and all the collagen that kind of hides at the base of the tail and the fins. That little piece right there. The kind of same thing as our other little friend earlier. We're just going to cut the rib cage off. These we're going to pull the bones out.
Are you skimming the scone?
Yes, yes, chef. That was a mother lotus cone. At least we know most of it's out of there. And that would be more of an ongoing process. You definitely want to babysit and get that.
That's that slimy stuff. We'll call that slimy stuff scone. Yeah, it is.
And show you why you want it out of there. So mackerels, the bone that hides that gets most people with mackerel, there's always a bone in there. So you got your normal bones, your rib bones that you cut out. These go about 3/4 of the way back in the fish.
Do you have someone in your restaurant that just exclusively does this for you? Or is this your daily task? Clean fish.
This is usually my first task of the day. All of the guys in there know how to do this, and everybody chips in. But like, it's just become my routine to drop the kids off at school and go in there. And it's a smaller restaurant, so everything kind of has to be in its place for you to be able to work with a clear head. So going through the fish is usually the.
So you spend 2-3 hours of your morning cleaning fish?
Oh yeah.
At least 2 or 3?
At least. Multiple different types. But it's awesome to be able to do that because, you're able to tell the whole story. So we got, from Kelly to butchery, to this, to the plate. And it gets to a point, it's kind of a zen thing. When you go in there and it's all quiet, there's not a bunch of people floating around. So this skin's a little sensitive to cut off with a knife. You could, but we really like to showcase that silver skin that's on there. Kind of a basic rule of thumb is if you're cutting the skin off with a knife, you're gonna go tail to shoulder. If you're peeling it off, shoulder to tail. And kind of roll it. When you have steel chopsticks, you can kind of roll it on the steel chopsticks. But that gives you an idea that silver skin is definitely. And two things that are a little more taboo in our culture, where parents cut the crust off the toast for their children, is silver skin weirds people out. Like, ew, it's got the skin on it. Well, that's more a display of the chef's skill and a really delicious, cool part of the fish. And really beautiful, just appealing. Like, to have something that's that color, that occurs in nature, is really cool. And then the bloodline. And bloodline can typically be a little bit more bitter. But if you leave a little bit on there, the bitterness kind of compensates for the sweetness of the fish and makes this perfect little balance in your mouth, And when you're dealing with fish that's super fresh and the bloodline is red instead of brown, you kind of want to show that stuff off. It's like a way of saying, hey, look, look at me, eat me. I'm this fresh. So that's why you'll definitely, in more of the Asian cultures, they're cool with that, and you'll see them do that. And that's not the chef being sloppy and not wanting to cut that stuff off. That's him saying, hey, look, I'm proud of this fish, I'm proud I can peel the skin off and make it look like this, and I'm really proud of how fresh this bloodline looks. It's just kind of a different way of looking at it. This fish really doesn't need much, and if I did too much to it, I'd be doing it an injustice. But kind of part of being a good cook is knowing what not to do sometimes. I do have just a little smoked yuzu vinegar. And going on to the total utilization thing, tangerines have been so amazing this season that you can eat them whole. and we just feel really bad throwing the peels away because they're so delicious. So we just threw it in the blender with a little bit of oil, just to get an extra use out of it. And then I didn't want to overly confuse things, but I still felt bad about throwing it away after that. So we mixed it with salt and habanero and made a version of a Japanese condiment called yuzu koshu. And I kind of did a quick version, but ideally you push that to the back of the fridge, let it ferment for at least a month, and you got something really cool and special.
So that's salt, habanero, and the peel?
So yeah, and the period.
I feel,
And the whole, like,
and
you know,
30 days.
Yeah. And then after that, definitely the longer the better. So here's, if anybody wants to try it, I can always cut another fish. Might as well.
Does anyone feel the need for a fork? Or are we just gonna? Is that a yay or a nay on the fork? I'm going to my fingers myself. Yeah. Did you get lucky enough to do time in Japan? Have you done time in Japan? But, okay, cool.
I want.
Hey, just don't take a picture of it, eat it. That's why we're here. We're not taking pictures. Come on. You want me to go first? You gotta get the pea pot. No, I'm serious.
Is that made out of anything?
So see these three? See these? This is my local worship.
Oh, hi.
These were my three favorites. The pea was my favoriteest.
Thank you for admitting it. I'm sorry.
Favoriteest.
Yeah, it's funny, they've just not been like a mainstream, but that's the thing is as there's a market for stuff.
But it's kind of a small dish.
Good potatoes, good herbs, but that's a little aioli we made, a little extra heavy on the egg. Got a little quinoa for crunch and just some fresh herbs in here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a few sides off of these green mackerel.
Chef David, do you prepare a menu, a different menu every night?
Sorry?
Do you mix a menu every night?
We have a few, so we have the restaurant menu with the, the stuff. We still have, I almost wanted to go without roll when we started this restaurant, but I figured that was just a little, so we do have the normal menu and some of the greatest hits are on there and stuff like that. But then the real menu changes daily, which is just like it's like a specials list, but it's a pretty long specials list. And then there's the unspoken menu. So there's a menu about twice the size of the specials list that just
It's there, you know.
it's there, yeah, and you don't know what it is until you get it. So I've never been a fan of big menus, and there's just too much. You go through the day and you're like, okay, I got this, and this. Before you know it, you'd have like a novel, so and we just kind of do it that way to.
Do you highlight your local creators?
Oh yeah, as much as possible when they, definitely a lot with Cyclops Farms just because they're right up the street. But sometimes, you know, you gotta do have to be careful with that because, you know, there's one day that you buy it from somewhere else and it's printed on the menu. You know, you don't want, you want to highlight them without, yeah. Which is another reason it's nice to have a menu that changes daily because, you know, a menu that, you know, is in print for a season, once it's in print, you can't change it without breaking a promise. You know, it's kind of like a promise to the customer. So we try to leave as much flexibility in there as possible.
That's me. That was pretty good. That's all you did. Back where you get the kids. You just service crew for that kid's correction?
Yes, please.
Does the local fishermen association have like YouTube videos on how to do fish, this fish during the season?
I don't think, well, a lot of fishermen are kind of secretive about their fishing, kind of, you know, their fishing grounds and everything, so I don't know if there's too many videos. He's shaking his head.
No, not like cleaning the fish, not, I mean, as a fisherman, it's kind of, we need to clean a mackerel like difficult.
Yeah.
And
There's, on YouTube, there's hundreds and hundreds of videos on how to clean fish of all shapes and sizes. I mean, everything from mackerel and lobsters and crabs and crustaceans up to big swordfish. We don't have any that we put out ourselves, as far as I know, from any of the other fishermen in San Diego, but there are quite a few available. And it takes a little practice. It's nothing to be too timid.
So this one's just gonna be super simple, pan fried. You're gonna notice this is a little oilier, a little more flavorful.
Which mackerel is this?
This is the Pacific green mackerel. No real need to pull the skin off of this because it'll kind of crisp up nicely since we're cooking it.
What do you need, sir? I can make your dream come true.
Kelly.
Maybe a few more sauteed cans.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Same size?
Just depends. If you have a couple of them, probably help you out, but sometimes people buy it by, the grocery bag full and it tips up to it.
I'll just take Troy home.
Just a little bit of oil, salt, pepper on this one. We'll plate closely.
You asked for it, I'll make it come true.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Wow, you just blew up your helmet.
It's almost
Scum skip.
These little mackerel, when they're this size, it's almost like cooking rabbit. You just want to get one side nicely seared and just kind of let it ride out. The skin really likes to stick on these. Now, the cool thing about having an oily fish like mackerel is it's really forgiving to cook. Like, you can overcook it, but if anything, it's like cooking foie where the oil just keeps pouring out of it.
Like mackerel?
And these things are really cool. You don't even have to go to the farm anymore. You just bring the farm inside your restaurant. That's baby fennel, potato salad, and just basically pan-fried mackerel. They almost look like something that came out of the ocean, but
Where are they coming from? Are they sliced flop?
this was specialty work on the farmer's market truck. Probably came like Northern California for a lot of that stuff, but there are local mushroom farms that are just doing more and more cool stuff every day. Yeah, those fava leaves are pretty nice, delicate texture, just right out of the gate. So you just kind of throw them in at the last minute.
fishing out here compared to fish out here? Compared to home?
I think a lot of people.
Here, a lot different, or I thought it was.
So what you guys got going on here is almost like like an Asian fish gravy.
First off, you need a damn license. That freaked me out. You know what I mean? It's all over
One more cool thing. Talking about curiosity and getting to know your farmers. I want you to get to know this new farmer down in Barrio Logan. New City Farms. He's growing these microgreens. And just in talking to him,
Read the roots.
I discovered this. Pea roots. So like always, see that? Almost like noodles. And they taste just like peas. So, you know, always ask questions, always turn rocks upside down.
Or your pea shoots.
Always, don't be scared to put weird things in your mouth, you know? 90% of the time it's like, whoa, it tastes good, you know? The other thing that I noticed that was really cool with what they were doing was just the sprouted peas.
So pea shoots. I just remember you did there.
Right, so here we go, you guys. I left, there are little bones just running down the middle. Enjoy, and thank you so much for listening to us talk about fish.
Thanks for coming out.